Welcome to the Injustice Gods Among Us podcast. With me today, we have a very special guest. You might know him, you might not. Skoposgaming.
Yeah, maybe not. I'm just a nobody.
Just a passionate player, right?
As of now, probably not as much, but in the past, yeah.
Also with me is Awesome P.
It was good.
Well, you came here today to talk about some of your multiplayer strategies, right?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't just have to be just that. We could talk about anything you want to talk about, but that will be the main thing we talk about today. Yes.
Okay, we can ease into it, but I do have a couple of questions that I've been meaning to ask for a while.
Okay.
Like to start off, for me, the Scopos build video was really the basis of everything gearing that I've done the last couple of years. It's really the start. So, I don't know how that's for you, Austin P.
Oh yeah, for sure. It was like one of the reasons I got. I think I left a comment or something a couple of years ago where it was like, it was basically the reason that I got first time I got first. It was like what I based a lot of my teams off.
I think I remember you posting that. Was it like on my YouTube channel or on the Discord?
I think it was on the YouTube channel. I think it was after that first Blackest Night season, one with like 60 hackers.
Yes, I do vaguely remember. Of course, I have a lot of comments on the channel, but I do remember that. Yeah, that's cool, man.
It was really like well, I guess it was like a blueprint for a lot of people. That it was like it helped me a lot.
Yeah, exactly. But my question is, when you look back at it now, after all these years of experience, how do you think it holds up?
That's a very good question. I'm glad you asked. I'm just looking back at exactly when I posted the video, and it says August 2020. My goodness. So it has been coming up to 3 years soon in about 3 months.
3 years. Wow.
And a lot has changed in the game since then. I'll I guess give a little bit of background to start with. So when I first started playing and I joined the subreddit, it was really different. I think most of the older players know that the thing that was really pushed for is the balance team. They multiple people in the subreddit always said balance team is the only way, like you have the best chance of winning. It's the best way to play. And unbalanced teams were frowned upon because they were unreliable, which to a certain extent is true because, of course, now we know the appropriate gearing and stuff that mitigates the weaknesses. But back then, people, just didn't know how to make it work. And so balancing teams were the only thing. So when I came up with it, I noticed that it was faster. And of course, over time, I also tweaked the strategy, the gearing and stuff like that after messing around. But since then, I think that really brought back the competitive interest in Injustice. And because of that, because people had access through the video to know how to grind faster, a lot more people started taking multiplayer seriously. Before that, I think AG, you can remember this since you played this for so long. Like it was number one was like 5-6 million battle rating, and that was enough to get first place.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, it was really low compared to what we have nowadays. So really, like I think that was a starting point where people were super interested in, I guess because they found a way to have a chance of getting, and of course many people did. Because of that, because more people were striving for that number one spot, more people were competitive, more people also started looking for different ways to make their teams faster. And of course, I'll mention MG, obviously one of the top players easily, and I think we can all agree. And he definitely kind of built upon the Scopos build. And definitely, his results show that he also makes his teams really effectively. And I think he's not the only one. I'm sure there are other people out there as well. I think Ember Mist was one of the people who was like the number one player on Android. He's not active nowadays anymore, but I remember him as well. So there were a couple people that kind of started experimenting their own builds. And I think that's good. That really, because my perspective was obviously limited. I thought that was the best way, which now looking back, I'm sorry, I kind of went a whole way, but just for those those people who don't know the history, I think it's important for them to understand how this all evolved. So coming back to your question, which was, now looking back, what do I think about it? Obviously, it's not perfect. Obviously, there were a lot of things that could be improved on. But at the same time, it really does give like the base, the foundation of the competitive MP gearing or forming teams nowadays. That definitely hasn't changed. I think the roles of having a damage dealer, having a tank, having a gear shatter, that it has still remained the same, right? Even after people's innovations, people's improvisations on the build is still the same. And the other thing is the 5K battle rating threshold. I think that was also a very pivotal finding that has till this day obviously stayed the same because the developers have not updated the game or increased that threshold further. So those are the things that still absolutely are relevant to today's MP grinding. Whereas I think what is you could call it outdated or not as effective anymore is like maxing out your cards, even the carry. Because in the Scopos build, I only said you should only max the damage dealer and not the other two. Looking back, obviously, thanks to MG's research and stuff, that also definitely changed my perspective on maxing characters out. Doesn't mean that you can't. Obviously, you can still make it work. I'll give a shout out to Aiden. He's not here with us today, but obviously he was one of the really good MP grinders, and he makes it work. Like he has almost every card at Elite 10.
Yeah, an insane collection.
Yes, and still he grinds. He's like one of the top iOS grinders out there. So it's not to say that you can't make it work, but I guess it just really limits your options in terms of who does damage. Because, like for example, I'll give you the example of Batman Ninja Lord Joker, right? Maxed him up pretty early, but now looking back, like can be a fantastic support with that AOE damage to gunners. For any gunners, but because the Elite 10 level 60, there's no way I can use him as supports anymore. So that really limits your options for the supporting characters. So that, and of course, I think the biggest downside about the multiplayer scene nowadays is the fact you can't go back on your promotion. So this is, we can't stress this enough. AG, you feel my pain.
Yeah.
Awesome P, I think, you were a little later. So, some characters you still haven't promoted to the Elite 10, so you still
I've been more restrictive with my promotions.
Yes, but that is just because there's no way to go back, right? If we had a way to go back, we have so many more permutations, so many more combinations that we can use in teams to mess around or figure, kind of discover new builds. But because of that irreversible nature of promotions, we really can't. So that's the biggest flaw of the Scopos build, I would say. But I don't know. That's what I can think off the top of my head. What do you guys think?
I don't, obviously a lot of this stuff is, I guess evolved over time, but I feel like you did say it's kind of like that video started, I guess, like a competitive renaissance of, Justice Mobile. Like it really made the whole thing. I mean, because before that there wasn't really, like, from what I can tell. I mean, I wasn't really active before that, but like there wasn't really a big competitive scene, or even like competitive players that you would just hear about.
Right.
But afterwards, there were like 15, 20 big names that you hear for a while.
Yeah.
And then just like a bunch of other people who would jump in every season, and I think that really that video changed a lot.
Wow, that's really nice of you to say. Yeah. Well, AG, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I agree, but I was going to say that, well, it's really interesting to see how your video kind of was the beginning of a lot of different branching builds. Like many ideas came from that idea of those three roles. Well, in people who already kind of grinding, like MG, you can see a totally different build with very different ideas, because he has the I think he still has the co-carry team, right? A basic damage dealer and the tank combined.
Mm-hmm.
I think those are very interesting teams to see, because, well, I do think the Scopos build, at least the basics of it, is still the best way to go. It is kind of limiting because we keep thinking in the same frame of ideas.
Yes, I agree. Yeah. Yeah, no, I really like how Awesome P framed it. It's like, the renaissance of competitive MP grinding. So, I guess it's just a nice way of saying, okay, the Scopus build now belongs in a museum, So, but all jokes aside, no, I absolutely agree. I think like the biggest role that it played was to serve as a stepping stone, as a a jump start to all these different builds that we see nowadays. And like what AG has rightfully pointed out, it really helps to have different perspectives and new ideas, rather than being stuck in thinking that's the only way. Yeah, it's the same thing that I did when I was in that phase where everyone was saying, oh, balance teams are the only way to go, and that's it. But because I chose to think differently, so I'm glad that people stepped up, and there's a lot more variety than just one build.
Yeah, I think it also really made it a lot more accessible, because looking back, the way I used to make my teams is to just check the leaderboards for their teams. And that was like a Blackest Night Superman at Elite 10, which looking back isn't the best idea. But now you had this way this is a recipe to get number 1. And look at this, I can do 1 million a day, and the top 1 player has 5 million and wins. Maybe I can do this. I think a lot of people thought that way.
Right. Yeah. No, you guys are so kind. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your insight. Thank you for the Scopos build.
And then building from that, when you look at today's teams on the subreddit and beyond in Discord servers, people haven't completely changed their tune from the standard balanced team. What do you think of people's ideas on what to prioritize in an attack team?
Right. Thank you for clarifying the question. That was one of the things I was about to ask, because you see a lot of things on the subreddit. And
yeah, that's true.
Let's just say they're pretty interesting posts. But anyway,
he sees them all, by the way. Keep that in mind.
Yes. I'm one of the moderators there, for those who are unaware. But so yeah, no, I thanks for clarifying that. You're talking more about like balanced or semi-balanced teams that we see still a lot of on the subreddit. So I guess it really comes back to the purpose, and I think we will revisit this point again sometime later on. But so the purpose of a player, I don't think necessarily. I mean, for sure, since the video was released until now, these past 3 years, there has been a lot more interest in the competitive scene. But at the same time, I still think the majority of the players are not looking like, to play like to get the top 10 seriously. I feel like a lot of them just are happy with the top 5% or the top 1%. So looking at the purpose of that, so if you are just wanting to have some fun and not be too serious, more casual grinding, just enough to get a reward and get by, and that's it, then yeah, I really don't see a problem to people having just a balanced team. But the flip side of that is, if they want to be really competitive, then obviously that's not the fastest way, simply because simple math, when you're having more balanced teams, your total damage output is decreased on your main damage dealer, compared to that super high stat card with the highest damage. You're obviously going to able to wipe out enemies quicker that way. So yeah, I think it really just depends on the person's goal, what he's looking for in the game. And like I said earlier in the previous question, is that it gives you a lot more flexibility. When it's balanced, you can just kind of, it doesn't matter, like you want to pair static with, I don't know, or do Flash or Batman or whatever. Like it wouldn't mess up the team composition because they're all pretty evenly balanced, right? So you are able to play with a lot more teams and have fun, then restrict this high stat card to only damage dealing. You know, like Black Knight Batman's another example. His unblockable passive, I feel like there's a lot of potential, but because I have my Black Knight Batman Elite 10, there's no way I can test that out. So yeah.
Yeah, I have the same. Yeah, I agree with you. What do you think, Awesome P?
I agree. I mean, I got my Black Knight Batman to Elite 10. It's got to be like 2.5 years ago now. It's been a while. When obviously it was all the rage, like, oh, he was the best Black Knight carry, and you just made your carries Elite 10. Like, that's just what you did at that point in the meta. So I was like, oh, of course I'm gonna, max him out. And then I did, and now I can't use him as a support, and it's really sad.
Right. That's why I can see how a lot of older players, they are willing to start over and have a new account just so that they can test out, different team compositions and have the opportunity to, promote different characters and have different characters at lower stats. So that is kind of what I did a little bit with the Nightscope account. Still pretty fresh. I don't have any cards more than Elite 7, but obviously, for the time being, I'm not going to have time to play that. But in the future, I'm sure at some point I'll, be able to test out different builds, different roles for the teams on that account.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting that you talk about how it doesn't really matter how you're going to go about it. If your goal is top 1% or top 5%, shouldn't that still mean that you should grind the fastest or the most efficient to that goal?
That's so I won't disagree. That's for sure. I mean, so then the question to that would be how much time a person has. So demographically speaking, it seems like a lot of people are, middle school, high school, college, this age group. Obviously, I think in college they'll have less time. They have to focus more on studies and stuff. And middle school, high school, if they don't have extracurricular activities and just is all they play, then they have more time. So the reason why I bring up time is because if you have time and you're having fun, but even if the matches take longer, then it doesn't matter, right? Like you're still just getting the top 1 to top 5%. But if you are, running out of time, you need a, I don't know, you're in a sports team or you have this debate, you're in this debate club, whatever. And you don't have time, then obviously you need to be a lot more efficient, a lot more wise with the way you grind MP. Is that answer satisfactory?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's cool that you speak about time, because speaking of time, you have a video of the fastest team possible at that time.
Nice transition. I like that.
Thank you. I try. But the Luchador Bane team has really grown into the most popular team for anyone who's serious about having a fast team, grinding fast. What do you think about that team now?
Another very interesting question. So looks like you're on the ball today. So like, yeah, the Lucy Bane. I mean, it's just his nickname, I guess. Don't know why it's so feminine, but Lucy Bane team. Do y'all? So just out of curiosity, I'll ask you a question and then I'll answer your question. So AG or Awesome P, anyone of you can answer. Do you guys know or remember like the very first iteration, or like the first person who?
First person. Well, I'm aware that one of your first, you used to try and get the fastest ultimate ladder, and you used like a team of Luchador Bane, Flashpoint Batman, and New 52 Shazam, I think it was. I remember that. I don't know if that's what you're talking about, but I do remember that.
That's right, man. That's a good memory. That was like all those years ago. Yeah. And I just wanted to ask that because I wanted to make sure, I may be wrong. There may be just information that we don't know about. As far as I know, I think that was like the start that of really kind of popularizing Lucy Bane. And of course, after that first team, that Flashpoint Batman, New 52 Shazam, and Lucy Bane, it was the the R2 Flash, fastest MP ladder, whatever. And then after that came MG's Flashpoint Batman, Lucy Bane, and Hawkgirl. So it's not too different from the original because I also have Flashpoint original, but of course, Hawkgirl makes a significant difference, that's for sure. And it's almost like, so Flashpoint Batman was my first team. Hawkgirl was in my second team with the R2 Flash. And then an amalgamation resulted in that. And still today, people say or think that that's the fastest MP team of all time for grinding. So what do I think about it? I think it definitely stood the test of time. I mean, just Lucy Bane alone, regardless. I mean, okay, Lucy Bane and Hawker, right? Those are the core. A lot of people switch out the third, like AG. I know you use Gaslight Batman, and a lot of other people I've seen also. He's kind of replaceable. But the core of the speed comes from Lucy Bane and Prime Hawker. I think we can all agree with this. So that formula definitely works, and it's still one of the top teams to this day. It definitely, few teams can actually surpass that. Yeah, that's what I think.
I noticed you said AG uses Gaslight Batman. I mean, not a big deal or anything, but I did tell him to use that first, and I did use it first. Just saying. I feel like the Luchador Bane team is like, when you think fast, competitive multiplayer teams, the first one that comes into my mind, at least, is the Luchador Bane team. It's just been such a pillar, like such an iconic team throughout most of the meta of the past 2-3 years.
Yeah, I mean, lots of people I know have used it, just that team, to grind tens of millions a season. Which is, people. I mean, sorry?
No, I was just saying I'm one of those people.
Yeah, everyone in the call is one of those people, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we all know how the Luchador Bane team can be really fast, but it has a lot of difficult matches, counters, just naming a few: Arkham Knight Batgirl, I think Batman Ninja Catwoman too, sometimes, and basically anything with Astro Harness. There's a lot of things that slow you down. So how do you stay consistent when grinding so many millions?
So I guess answering that question, we will go into a little bit of the cons of the Luchador Bane team, because we talked about how good it is, and it's obviously stood the test of time, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't have its cons. What AG mentioned was, definitely a point where it's, it has a couple weaknesses. It's not like it has just one weakness. Obviously Red Sun Green Lantern team also is a hard counter.
Right.
And I heard Awesome P mention the Quake engine, which is also a pretty, hard team to defeat with the Luchador Bane team, because you're not able to tag in and out quick enough, and they can pretty much kill you there. So counters aside, another thing I would mention is like the tapping of that special one circle.
Really?
And like you were mentioning, for over 10 million, 20 million, 30 million, doing the same repetitive motion really hurts the hand. And there's this thing called RSI, which I'm sure both of you are aware is a repetitive strain injury. And that's because there's just it's so intense, right? When you tap, you want to get to 200%, so you're not just lightly tapping, or it's not just a one tap, it's like multiple taps and with force. So over a long period of time, it really hurts. Like I actually told this to AG a while back, but when I grinded to 40 million, I literally had to switch hands, because by default I use my right hand to tap the circle. Like I had to switch between my right and my left, just so that I don't kill my hands from all that tapping. So sorry.
Yeah, I recognize that. When I do a season with over like 4 million a day, I make sure to I do some stretches and I switch hands and fingers, and at the end of the day I just switch teams because it's not worth their injury.
Right, exactly. And one more thing I'll mention about the con of the Lucy Bane team is that it does require a certain level of focus. It's not, I mean, to a certain extent, you go on autopilot, but then there's always, those surprise teams like the Quake engine, or, a Resurrector, or a Blitzline Green Lantern. If you're not careful, you lose your Lucy Bane. That's it. You lose the game. You lose those bonus points in your ladder. You grind a lot significantly slower when that happens. So okay, you want to say you keep peak focus for 1-2 hours. That's fine. But if we're talking about hitting 30 million, 40 million across the span of a week of grinding, there's no way anybody can maintain that level of focus. And so it's pretty intensive. I mean, AG, you're the only other person who's ever grinded 40 million. What do you think?
Thanks for mentioning that. And yeah, I really agree. I mean, it's easy to say, well, I can win with Luchador Bane all day of the week because you never played more than 2 hours straight. But when you've got to do 40 million or so, and you have a schedule for 5 or 6 million today, and you got to make that with that one team, then at the end of the day, your speed is really not what it should be. What you said, the focus, it's a very underrated part of the team, I think, because it's very hard to anticipate. Well, at a certain point, you do get a feeling for it. You see an Arkham Knight Batgirl and you know what to do, you have the timing down. But it still takes a lot more time than it should, in my opinion. And you do have a risk of getting knocked out. And then you lose a lot of bonus points.
Right. See, I think one of the biggest issues is that Lucy Bane can't function as a glass cannon without those 3 gears, namely the League of Assassins Knives, the Tanner Totem, and the Cloak of Destiny. Remember in the original Scopos build, I mentioned for the carry, we should have the Astral Harness on him because that really keeps, greatly increases your survival so that you don't lose matches and you don't lose bonus points. But with the Lucy Bane team, if you put in an Astral Harness, sure, you'll survive longer, but you won't be nearly as effective in dealing damage. And that's a big problem. I feel like, that makes him, lives up to his name as a glass cannon. He does insane amounts of damage, but at the same time, if you lose him, that's it. You lose. I mean, of course, you could sometimes rely on that DOT on your third character, Batman or whatever. But if you face a Black Knight team, for example, then yeah, pretty much screwed.
Exactly. Yeah. And what's your idea for compensating for that? What's your alternative?
And so,
ooh.
Now we're getting to the meat of the conversation.
So how do I solve this problem of the Lucy Bane team being so fragile? So again, it goes back to purpose. Everything goes back to purpose. What are you, aiming for? If you're just like, say, you want to hit 2-3 million and get top 1%, that's Lucy Bane team is fine. You can't afford to lose some ladders here and there. It wouldn't really affect your outcome because you're still going to get the rewards. But if you're talking about competitive grinding, I would say switch it up. That doesn't mean that you need to stop using the Lucy Bane team, but because the longer you play with that same team, the higher risk of him dying or facing tougher matches and then you slowing down. So back in the day before, so I started competitive grinding before the update happened where they introduced the watching ads for recharges. So at that point, there was no other way. If you don't spend recharges, you gotta basically rotate 15-20 teams. So I still think that's one of the best ways of kind of keeping it fresh, right? You're using different teams, but at the same time, you're also grinding pretty quickly, and you're not running the risk of fatigue from the same team and having to maintain that same level of focus. So I think that's one way to do it. And obviously another guy I would give a shout out to is K Real. That's his name. He's a Russian dude who is also a pretty impressive player. He definitely earns that right. And I know for a fact that he always switches out different teams. Only when it comes to like serious speed boosting grinding, he uses recharges. But other than that, he rotates between different teams. And of course, MG 425 does the same thing. He also has like a whole spreadsheet, every single character and every single gear and everything optimized. So if those are the few of the best players around, if they're doing that, I'm sure there's merit to that.
Exactly. Yeah. What do you think, Awesome P?
Well, I was just gonna say, like, when I used to, like, because now I don't really grind as much as I used to, but back when I, used to grind, like once every 2 or 3 seasons, I always used to like when I was grinding like a lot per day, I would like in between maybe like every 2 hours of grinding, I would take like a 15-20 minute break just because if I didn't, I knew I was gonna slow down and end up getting like 300,000 like battle rating an hour or less. Um, so I would need to like, pace myself. Because it's not a race. It's like like when you're doing those long seasons, it's more of a marathon.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's you really hit the core
That
on
is
that
a
one.
brilliant point. Exactly. Go ahead, AG. I just wanted to say, yeah, that's crucial. Yeah.
So,
Sure.
going on a bit of a tangent, Scopos, I know you're famous for, at least to me, you're famous for multitasking and playing all day while doing different things. How do you do that, and how do you keep the focus?
So number one, I play on a phone. So nowadays you have your phone with you everywhere, right? I mean, it's hard to imagine someone's like, I don't need my phone. Like everywhere you go, you have your phone with you. So that is already an advantage versus a person who plays on an iPad, for example, or a tablet, whatever, because that's not as mobile and it's harder to pull it out and just play in public versus like a phone. So and then I really it's this is the part where I will confess just gotta be a no life. Thinking back to my Reddit post where I beat that the other guy over 22 million back in the day, and I think it might still be the number 1 or 2 Reddit post of all time. But anyway, on the Injustice subreddit. But there, someone asked me like like kind of the same question, and he was like, you got to be a no life, and I was like, you know what, you're not wrong. I mean, it's true because you only have so much time in a day, and if you don't, that's the only way you can accumulate battle rating. If you don't play, you're not gonna you know progress ahead of the other player. So any downtime I have, I know this might border, obsessiveness, but really I just, because I also have had a full-time job, I had kids to take care of, I had other responsibilities. So any downtime, even when I'm on the toilet, I grind Injustice. And I don't think that's the most healthy thing to do. I do recognize that, some people might tell me to touch some grass, and they're right.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
again, it just goes back to what you're trying to achieve, right? So for me, like I really enjoyed beating hackers. That was a big source of motivation at the time before they had like battle rating hackers. They back then it was just like character cards or recharges they hacked, but it was not battle rating hackers. So it's definitely still possible, although it did take more effort than them to beat them, but still I had satisfaction in that. So
When I was like, this is just kind of like the thing that I think of when I think of like multiplayer grinding. And I did like the 38.5 million battle rating in 2 weeks with essentially no recharges. I must have played like close to 100 hours during those 2 weeks. And I like every waking moment of my life, if I wasn't playing Injustice, if I wasn't grinding, I would feel guilty for not being on the game because I felt like I was falling behind,
That's
It's
so
just so all
relatable.
consuming.
I think we're just a bunch of sick people. Honestly, we need help. It's just a game. This is just a mobile game. I'm sure a lot of viewers will be thinking that in their head. I'll be like, you're right. You're right. I mean, for most players, there's no need to have that level of intensity and grinding. But now there is a price to pay to be one of the best. And
Exactly.
I would bring
This is a lot.
the example of like Olympic athletes. Like I think it was gymnastics or something, but they had like a documentary, and this person, I wouldn't mention whichever country he or her is from, just so that they don't get slack. But like from as young as 2 or 3 years old, they're grilled, they're trained to be an Olympic athlete. And then by the time they're like 14, 15, they're the best because they've trained their whole lives. Talk about no life. That's the kind of dedication it takes to be at the very top of your field. So it's for the most, the majority of the population, I would say, yeah, there's absolutely no need of that. But to be one of the best, yeah, there's a price to pay.
Exactly, well spoken. Thinking of or speaking about being the best, going back to your strategy.
You gonna spill the beans, Scopos?
Sorry. So what exactly is the question again?
Yeah, can you just expand upon how you build teams? Because you say you switch teams. What I've noticed personally, the more I play, is that it's very important to have synergy, and the teams get more and more character specific. So I change gearing more than I would when I just saw the Scopos build and just slapped the same build on every single team. How do you build your teams now?
So you're definitely right. You know, it's not a one size fit all when it comes to gearing your teams. You know, obviously, like for most special 2 specialists, we have like, you know, Master Death Guard, Tanu Totem, Demon Blade, or Astral Harness, depending. But on a, you know, special 1 specialist like Lucy Bane, obviously you're not going to do, you know, Master Death Guard because that defeats the whole purpose of Stunner. So that's just an example. But I think I've expanded more to looking for special 1 damage dealers. So Wally West is one, for example. You know, everybody trashes on him, says he's useless, and you know, obviously for some reason with the special 2 being so slow. But his special 1, all Flash characters actually has a pretty good special 1 with that 4 hits, and it with, you know, max crit chance and crit damage, they can take out multiple characters with just 1 special. So, you know, I think that's really interesting. And of course, you know, thanks to your contribution, AG and team, in, you know, creating a spreadsheet where, you know, we see every single character's like gold characters, special 1, special 2, what's the duration, how many characters they can knock out, whether they just knock out a bar or 2 bars, you know, stuff like that. Through that spreadsheet, I was able to identify, you know, a lot of more cards that have potential to be the main damage dealer and not the conventional way, which is, you know, through their special 1. So that's one way. And it's a fine balance between damage output and survivability, because you see why I keep going back to like survivability is because if you lose that match, you lose the bonus battle rating, and it will be the same as if you're playing single matches, right? You get the concept, because, you know, if you lose a match, you lose all that bonus, then it'll be no different than you just played and won a single match, then you play another single match. So that's why it's so important, and that's where synergy comes in. So, you know, if like you have an Arkham Knight Batgirl team, then the main damage dealer does not necessarily need to have the Astral Harness, or Batman Ninja Catwoman team. So then you have more room for, in terms of, you know, a different gear than just having to restrict that Astral Harness on your damage dealer alone. So it really depends, you know. Of course, you know, there's 144 characters in the game, and each character can be paired in different teams, and you can build different synergies. So, but in the broad sense, that's kind of the idea of how, you know, you can gear your teams.
Right. So you've, to be honest, from the snooping I've done on your teams, I often see you use Prime Hawkgirl and then a special 1 character like Superman or a Flash character.
Right. Yeah, it's even Red Sun Superman was another one that I was, you know, testing out, and you don't really see a lot of people mentioning that, you know, he's a fast carry, and he is. I mean, that one hit special is so underrated. So basically, you know, any other character, you know, of course those are just examples, but any other character that has like a 1 hit or very few hits, so like 2, 3, 4 at the most, all have potential. Because see, so we're talking about end game play here, right? Without crit augments, then yeah, I don't think it's that viable for that special 1 build. But with crit augments, with that 250% damage boost, or critical damage rather, then it really opens up, you know, options when it comes to that. And yeah, you know, unfortunately, I've tried like going, so good. First of all, good observation, AG, about Prime Hawkgirl. And what I was going to say is that I've tried deviating from that, you know, and just go with like a full, I don't know, Blackest Night team, or just different teams without Hawkgirl. And the fact of the matter is still, what constitutes, you know, what is the core of speed in the current meta or in this game is special damage because Tanu Totem refunds the power. So as long as you're able to tag in with the Tanu Totem and Master's Death card faster, you're going to get more power. You're going to do more damage. And so Prime Hako to me is still irreplaceable, like because of her passive of letting you tag in more frequently, thus generating more power, thus dealing more damage. I've tried other builds, and it really depends on luck then, because okay, if the enemy does not have the Astral Harness or no multiple resurrections, then sure, any other normal team can work equally as fast, if not faster. But you run into an Astral Harness, you have 3 shields that you have to go through. Man, that really slows down so much of your grinding. So yeah, I still stick a lot to Prime Hawker just because speed is my ultimate priority, and I don't think that's something I can compromise on.
Okay, interesting. So you do use recharges for her then?
No, I actually watch ads. Yeah, so I guess that comes to my next suggestion on how to I currently build faster NPT. So just the advantage of watching ads for recharges is that you don't have to switch out gears, and it's not just a time thing, it's also a focus thing, right? That's another thing you have to pay attention to. Okay, you got to take out this character, you got to swap, you got to remember, oh, and the other team, these are the gears I put on him. So it takes time to swap out teams, swap out gears, and then start playing again. Versus you could, the same time that requires more attention, that same time you use to watch an ad, which of course nobody actually watches an ad. You just let it play, let it run, and you can like talk to a friend, you can do something else, and then when you see that ad, is over, you just hit an X button and you can get right back to playing. And so I definitely attribute the introduction of that, or rather reintroduction, because the option to watch ads for recharges actually existed in the past before I started playing. But that really changed the game for me as well. I think if not for that, I probably would have taken longer to get to that 1 billion overall battle rating. Well, what do you think? AG or Awesome?
Well, I think it's interesting because I think you said a while ago that you're really against watching ads. Is that true, or am I misremembering?
I don't remember.
Your principle of going for specials with 2, 3, or 4 hits or 1 hit, is that the same with special 2s?
Ideally so. Just because same thing, the more hits they have on a special, the higher chance of you triggering that Astral Harness, because the more hits equals less damage per hit. So and Astral Harness, the ultimate, enemy nemesis to fast MP grinding.
Right.
So yeah, I was just about to ask Awesome. Like, I think you also by and large use more ad recharges than rotate teams. Well, I mean, am I right?
Well, I have recently started building an MP rotation, but for most of my Injustice grinding career, I have stuck to ads with ultimate ladders. That was usually my my MO, if you will.
Right. Yeah. And would you agree that you did that with the same reasoning, that just less hassle with switching out gears, or you can just kind of chill while the ad loads up? What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. I felt like it takes maybe a little bit less effort, and maybe it's like with the ads, especially now that the ads are longer for some reason. I don't know what's up with that, but like they're I guess there's probably like a higher potential for switching if you've got like a bunch of really, really fast teams. That's like not really, realistic for most people. And also when I started multiplayer grinding, I really did not have like a great collection. It was like pretty like early late game, maybe late mid game. So I really had to catch up over the last couple of years. So when I started, it was really I had the Luchador Bane team, and that's really what I stuck to, what I clung to get like a lot of battle rating. I used ads with ultimate ladders.
That's a great point, because I'm sure among our listeners to the podcast, I'm sure there's a good number of people that are still relatively new or mid game, and they're don't have like a full collection to mess around with yet, and so that's where the ads can really come in clutch. And you only need one or two fast teams to amass a lot of battle rating. But the only thing I would say is that sometimes the ads get a little glitchy, and it does not allow you to go back into the ladder, and thus you lose your bonus battle rating that way from the ladders. So that's a huge disadvantage for sure. And I think that's why when it comes to like you want the most consistent and safest way of grinding, it's still switching out teams just for that reason.
Scopos, if I may, what makes a team with, say, Rebirth Wally West or Red Sun Superman more consistent in your view than a Luchador Bane team?
Good question. So, like I said, with the Luchador Bane team, it doesn't work as effectively without those 3 gears. It is a must-have on him to capitalize on his passive. Whereas with Red Sun Superman or Wally West, their passives have nothing to do with their special ones. It's just more of so I can't afford to put the Astro on them, and it's a lot more reliable that way, and it's a lot more cool looking. Both of them, I think Luchador Bane is just ugly, unfortunately.
And Wally West is a great looking card, right?
He has a lot of flair. Let's be real. He has flair. He has style to his animations. And same with Superman too. I like his fashion sense. Folded up sleeves and that cape that's gray on the outside but red on the inside. Oh man. It looks nice.
That's important too. It's very important in grinding.
Yeah, that's actually the biggest factor is the fashion sense of the characters they're using.
Absolutely. I mean, the visual appeal. If you don't even like looking at the thing, then how are you motivated to keep grinding, right? So
you're going to be using them for a lot of hours. If you're planning on getting a lot of battle rating, you gotta like the way they look. I mean,
exactly. Can't agree more.
Well, so I'm thinking it through, right? So you're using either a special 2 specialist with something like Master's Death Card, Tattoo Totem, and Astro Harness, or a special 1 with the same build? Or do you use League of Assassins knives?
I will go with the knives for a special 1 build. The other thing that is really interesting that I think you might have been the first person to plant this idea in my head, AG, is the use of the Enchantress gear. It's also such an important part that it's not. I did mention it in the original Scopos build, but I mentioned it on the supporting character, not the main damage dealer. Which, of course, it's fine, but on the main damage dealer, you are able to actually prevent enemies from using special, and that's such a big part of speeding up your grind, because if the enemy uses a special or worse, a super move, that oh my goodness, that's so annoying. Like they tag in and then you just use. But if you time your specials right and the goals trigger, then they are not able to use any specials or super moves, and that really helps save time. But the problem again, goes back to if you don't have Prime Hawk Girl on your team, then and use that, then once that's over, they can still spam a special or a super move. Versus you tag out with a hawk, another character with a hawker on your team, and you're able to stall time, and then you tag your carry back in. And that's why I'm starting to really move away from special 2 specialists, just because that offers you that flexibility. With the special 2 specialists, you pretty much always need the Master's Death card. Some people use like Rags on Archrange's Deathstroke, for example, and that but not every character is able to do well with that build, and so you're restricted to the Master's Death card and the special 2 specialists. But with a special 1 build, you can allow another card to have the Master's Death card and pair it with the Claw of Horus or I don't know, DOT gear, and that opens up another I guess a sub damage dealer on the team. And also, so if your main damage dealer dies, at least you have someone that can also deal damage rather than, being complete dead weights and you losing the match. So that's part of it. The freeing up the gear slot, the Master Death card, and then also replacing that Master Death card with the Enchantress to increase your grinding efficiency.
I just say that is exactly why I love Arkham Origins Batman so much. I mean, like, I'm biased because he was one of my first crit max characters.
And who suggested that to you?
Okay, AG. But I use him with Candy Totem, Enchantress, and usually Demon Blade. Well, because he's got the 3-hit special too, and he's got the passive for the extra power. I see a lot of talk on the subreddit, especially, and some people on the Wiki server mainly would say he's like a worse Arkham Knight Batman. And I could not disagree more. I
I would agree because I don't know if you remember, but I think that wasn't the first time when you usually it wasn't the first time that the idea was introduced. but yeah, no, I mean that's Arkham Origins Batman. If you see, so many people have asked me if how would you make rate the characters if you made a tier list, and I've always refrained from that. But if hypothetically speaking, if I had a tier list, he would be an S tier.
Sure.
And of course, you don't in the most tier lists you don't see him maybe even in A, maybe some of them are in B or C, and that's because precisely the meta goes back to power and spamming specials, and he starts off already with 2 bars of power. He frees up another slot for another card to be more useful. His special 2 is so short in animation and only 3 hits, so he's able to bypass thresholds. Like everything about him is good, even as a special 1. I mean, as a support, his special 1 is able to do multiple applications of DOT. So, all in all, yeah, no, he is such a great card, S tier for me.
I know you have aversions to tier lists, but I maintain that I'm Hawkgirl is the best character in the game, and I don't care what anyone says. That's my hot take.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, agreed. So, what have you missed about your build? Because I'm thinking back to the team you used back in your previous stream with, I think it was Red Sun Superman, Prime Batman, and Prime Hawkgirl. But you used something like Master Death Guard, Enchantress, and Claw Force on Batman. And then I think it was League of Assassins, Knives, Tattoo Totem, and Zarnian Who Can Chain. Is that right?
Yeah. Superman's able to chain, from just his heavy attacks into a special 1 or his special 2, and that's another reason why I think Red Sun Superman is really strong. But yeah, so cards that can chain will definitely have an advantage as well. Yeah, I'm sorry, AG. Like, is there more to that question, or?
Yeah, it's just strange to me how that team doesn't really match your description, because it still uses an extra slot for that hook and chain. The same thing that Lucy Bane does.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I misheard you. I thought you meant like chaining from basics to specials, but you were talking about the Zarnian hook and chain. Okay. Yeah. That was just to have 100% maximum crit damage. I mean crit chance. Same thing. Why Awesome uses the Demon Blade sometimes on Arkham Origins Batman to 100% crit. Once you have, max crit the character at 50%. So 50 plus Tanu Totem 30, 80 plus 30% from that gear is 110. So obviously you're going to crit every time. So I've tested both. I was just curious to see, that 100% crit damage, how that fares against a team that favors more safety. Meaning I take out the Zarnian hook and chain and I put in the Astro. At that time during the stream, I just wanted quick matches, so that's what I put on. But I think in the long term, if you talk about consistency, it would still be the Astro Harness that has the edge, because when you lose matches, automatically it doesn't matter how fast you lose that bonus battle rating, right? And the relatively slower team but more consistent is still able to outgrind you in the long run. It's not that it's unwinnable once Superman dies, but the secondary character takes a longer time to deal damage and eventually win. You basically be with Hawkgirl tagging in, tagging out until you're able to knock out the opponent. But yeah, no. So I would still say the Astro is, like ultimately, because we at the end of the day we're talking about consistency, and we don't want to even have a chance of losing that ladder. So I would still favor the Astro Harness, to be honest.
Okay.
Scopus, I was wondering, how do you pick the support characters that you usually use on those teams, like Prime Batman or any like the Batman Who Laughs, whatever you pick.
That's a good question, and so even just those two examples that you gave, you already can see a common denominator. They have a very easy special one animation mini game, if you will. Like you just tap on it. You don't, it doesn't take a lot of effort. Or swiping. Swiping is the worst. Like Prime Raven and stuff like that. So that's number one. And then also, preferably, I mean, it just depends. But if you have the Master's Death card, then it really doesn't matter. Short animation time is what matters, and also fewer hits compared to like multiple special one hits. Or so like Prime Ares is 2 hits, but it takes that filling out the bar takes a long time. Versus like Prime Batman, just 1 tap, and he's also able to shatter more than one. It has a chance of shattering more than 1 gear. And if you equip like what's that? Wonder Woman's Amazonian shield, sword and shield, or whatever gear basically that increases stun chance on special one, that greatly you have a higher chance of stunning, because any Batman special ones already has an innate chance of stunning, a pretty good chance. So with those gears, you can have a higher chance of stunning. So yeah, I tend to because you basically want, again, if you're going to grind a long period of time, you want to make it as easy for yourself as possible with the least amount of effort and concentration. And so tapping, you can just wait for it to go, and it will be easier on your wrists and your hands. So that's what I tend to go with. And then also it depends on, like with Prime Batman, obviously in that particular team, he's not a damage dealer. He's just there to support. But in the Batman Who Laughs, he's kind of a co-carry. He's also like a secondary damage dealer. So you want the special one animation to have fewer hits to be able to bypass. Like Joker cards that have 1 hit special ones, they are also pretty underrated. I don't see a lot of people talking about their damage, but I have plenty of times where I've bypassed a Prime Raven Hell Swap, or even like a Shazam's passive, thanks to that 1 hit and knocking them out.
I think the Batman Who Laughs is near perfect support, because he has the 1 hit special one. He has the the easy gear shatter because of his Robin passive. He can knock like the if you're using like rags on the carry, or not Master's Death cards, you don't get the chain. He can knock them down, so as soon as they get up, you can launch the special and not waste any time. The only thing that really hinders him is his card passive.
Tarot cards.
He has the card.
Yes.
That's like, if it weren't for that, I think he would legitimately be the perfect support.
100% agreed. Speaking of that, like your assessment is right, spot on, because for the longest time, even till today, I still have not maxed evolve him or evolve his dark power, because the dark power says that you'll have a higher chance of triggering those tarot cards. That means slower grinding, because you gotta wait. So that's why I refrain from maxing it. But then I had an epiphany yesterday, because I realized that only happens with dark power use. So if you're in a team with Prime Hawkgirl and you tag him in, there wouldn't even be time for him to charge up that dark power before you hit the special one. So it's basically the chance of triggering that tarot card is still going to be equal to if you didn't involve him, right? Am I right?
Yeah. Oh.
So I basically, I could have evolved him. I just, didn't want to slow down my grind because I was using him exactly how you mentioned. But when I'm thinking about it, because you really read the description, it increases to 100, 2 cards, higher chance of getting 2 tarot cards, and the 2 tarot cards with 100% of stun or, damage reduction, whatever card you choose, which is great. But yeah, I just realized that. So I guess, I can go ahead and evolve him now.
I evolved him, but I didn't upgrade his dark passives. But also that's also kind of because I'm working on Shazam at the moment, but I was not doing it for that very reason. I just evolved him because he looks pretty. But now I don't know.
Right? I mean, if you think about the time it takes for him to fire a special one, it's such a short time. Like, there's no way, he would charge up a bar of dark power at a time. But maybe the subsequent tag-ins, maybe. So, yeah.
Arkham Origins Joker has the same special one, except for the cards thing. And he has a pretty good damage to health ratio, I think. Even at Elite 10, he has... Well, it's comparable to Ares, if I remember. A really good ratio.
You know what? I'm gonna start testing him out. That's a I mean, just thinking through, he is also, he fits the ideal co-carry or supporting character picture.
Yeah, and he even has synergy options, but I don't know if an unblockable chance is really that worth it on a single hit.
You're talking about Arkham Origins, the Joker?
Yeah.
I guess the only thing about him that would make him like maybe a little less consistent than Batman Who Laughs is he doesn't have the Tear Shatter like on first special one use. Because when you tag in the Batman Who Laughs, he can instantly like shatter all of the opponent's gears. But also if you're bypassing Astro and just one-shotting them, I don't know if that matters too much.
Yeah, well, I meant as a carry instead of a support.
Oh, because Scopos mentioned support. As a carry, he'd be a nice option.
Right. Sorry, AJ. Yeah, but yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. Of course, you gotta promote him a little bit more for more damage. And so that's the trade-off. But no, I think he can definitely has a good potential. If you're even thinking about like having a stun, and having the Cloak of Destiny on him, who knows what he can do.
Scopus, I know you like using Regime Wonder Woman. I know you used to use her for her special 2, but I was wondering what you thought of her special 1.
It's super powerful as well. I mean, because I have her crit chance, crit damage maxed out. She's so powerful. Same thing like, Arkham Origins, the Joker. One hit, not damage reduced. You can kind of put the Cloak of Destiny or whatever on her and then have like a Batman character as a support, stun, tag her in, like massive damage. Yeah. So those are actually I did at some point kind of play with the idea. I put like 600 Wonder Woman as the support and Prime Hawkgirl, and then Regime Wonder Woman with a special 1 build, and it was pretty decent, yeah. But
the only thing about sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that the only thing about 600 Wonder Woman is that her special 1 is so fast. You can't really stall her like as a support.
Yes.
So, even if you draw out the minigame as long as you can, you're still gonna have like that split second where the enemy can attack you or launch a special before you tag in your carry again.
Yeah, exactly. I guess I was just more of trying to maximize the damage output on Regime Wonder Woman, and obviously she does the most, for female characters. Then Prime Batman is second with 25, but she has 30%. But no, you got a valid point for sure. And I think what I was about to say earlier was that, she also, so Regime Wonder Woman, like Arkham Origins Batman, is another one of those slept on cards that could be good all around, really. But I still think her special 2 has a little bit of the edge, just because it can knock out multiple opponents versus just one opponent with the knives. It's really useful to clear out like multiple opponents, or if a person has like resurrection, it just knocks out in 2 hits. Like, it's so clean. I don't think there's any other card that has 2 equal damage hits like that. I may be wrong, but off the top of my head, I can't think of one that doesn't have reduced damage.
Oh yeah, doesn't like Prime Bane have one? I don't know.
Prime Bane, and I
Prime
think
Bane.
Red Sun Solomon Grundy maybe too, but
Oh yeah.
obviously their damages are a lot lower. So
Mhm.
yeah.
I guess like the thing that I'm thinking about with Regime Wonder Woman is like for Special 1, the mini game is so much easier to use than a Special 2.
Yes, that's true. That is true.
I can imagine getting like, because what happened when I used to grind with Luchador Bane was at the end of those seasons, whenever I like touched my screen afterwards for a few weeks, it would hurt. You know, like my fingers would be like,
Oh my
tender.
goodness.
But her Special 2 was really, really good. Because you convinced me to crit max her initially, so I did, and I've been using her.
Yeah, I mean, I've tried her out as well, but the Special 2 minigame is just, man, it's killing me. It's so much, it's worse than the Luchador Bane one.
Right, because in the first place, the percentage goes up. You need to put in more taps to hit 200%, and then secondly, you're doing it twice on one special, right? So, yeah, it's brutal.
One thing that no other minigame will ever hate as much as meter burn. I hate meter burn so much.
I think it's fine.
I don't even know. No, I've told you about this before. I don't even know what it is about it. Like I feel like rapid swipe is probably like objectively the worst one, but there's just something about meter burn. Like the fact you gotta wait through that whole like mini game doing nothing. It's just, oh my god, I hate it. That's why,
true.
because I promoted Lord Joker to Elite 6, so not quite as high as you did, Scopos, but I used him for a carry as a carry for a bit. But I just could not get past that mini game.
Right.
That's my one hesitation about my True Love Prime Doomsday. I love everything else about that character, but it's just the meter burn.
True. You know, it's strange that you have a lot of characters that you love that have a meter burn special, like Blackest Night Martian Manhunter.
Maybe it's, yeah. that says something about me, I guess.
Yeah.
Not quite sure what, but there's something there.
Well, now that you've talked about your consistency teams, when do you think that border is? Like, at what point should you start looking into consistency over pure speed?
So it really, again, goes back to what we're talking about at the start initially, where it just depends on what kind of a player you are. So if you're just casual and you want to get to, I don't know, 700,000, 1 million quickly and be done for the week, then raw speed will be the way to go. But if you have any sense of significant grinding going on, I mean, like competitive grinding going on, then you probably want to go with consistency. But I think one last thing to say about that last factor is that your playstyle matters. So your preference, what you like. Some people just, even if they're not as fast, they're like, I don't care. I like balanced teams. I like all the promotions to look the same, Elite 5, or they just have more satisfaction trying out different teams and not restrict them. Then go with that. It doesn't even matter about how fast you grind, because at the end of the day, it's still a game. And I do reiterate this a lot, is that if you don't have fun with the game, then it's really no point playing the game. So fun is the number one thing. But if you're looking for greatness, if you're looking to climb the Injustice Mobile ladder, then there are some sacrifices that need to be made.
Fun during grinding? What's he saying here?
When AG earlier was asking about like people should like try to get stuff as fast as possible because it's like efficiency and all that. Like a big thing is some people just have fun playing how they want to play. That's something that I've learned by being yelled at a lot in some of the servers. Because like if you know me, it's like kind of a joke how much I love efficiency, but there are some people that it's just not what they value. And it's like a fundamental like clash of ideals is what it is.
Right. Obviously you're the number one chatter on my Discord server, so I have seen, you live and breathe efficiency. That's no question. But I'm glad, that definitely reflects a certain level of maturity on your part to be willing to accept that, other people just think otherwise.
It took me a while to accept that, let me tell you.
Yeah.
Oh,
For a while, you were like, Luchador Bane team is the only team you should use. It's way too efficient. And now, look where we are.
one idea I've been flirting with is because I love seeing big number, right? So on the day that season starts, when I'm like grinding, I'll usually use my Luchador Bane team for the first night, and then from there, like, because I'll swap, and do the rest of the season with like my Arkham Origins Batman team or Regime Wonder Woman or whatever it may be. Because I feel like the first night does kind of feel like a race more than any other part of the season.
Yeah, I can see that.
That's a really interesting point you brought up. I mean, you're right, because ultimately that's another aspect of competitive grinding that we haven't touched upon, is the mind games, is the mental battle.
Oh, yeah.
Like you set the pace, you're in front, and I believe the same thing with like actual races that people run, like in marathons or whatever, or even like sprints and things like that. Like there are strategies, there are mind games. Do you want to be the one that just goes first and intimidate everybody else, or do you want to be the one that just follows right behind the top person and make them feel like they have to be on their toes? And so it's different, and I've tried both. I've of course, at the end of what the safest way is still to be ahead, and just maintain the speed. You just look at the second opponent, as long as he's a sufficient amount of battle rating away from you. You can kind of just be at ease. But I really like just kind of intentionally tailing the other person, like just be like, I don't know, 500 battle rating different, like below him, just to let him think like he's the number one the whole time, and that he's doesn't know when I'm gonna catch up or beat him, things like that. So that's really interesting that you brought it up, and I can see even up till today, of course not every week, but I do see you, Awesome P, like just doing that sprint on the first day.
Yeah, it's usually, even if I don't play the whole season, I sometimes, like, one in every 2 or 3 seasons, I will play the first night.
Yeah, it's the mind games are really underrated. I think that's a really fun part of the game that I almost forgot about, because I remember my first season going all out the most against Aiden. I did like 20 mil just because he kept passing me in my sleep. I'd wake up and be like 4 million behind. And it was so maddening, because when you pass someone, it's like, yeah, I beat them. Okay, I can rest now. And then a couple hours later, you check, and then you're 2 million behind, and that just does something to you. It lights a fire.
The game of catch up.
Yeah.
Right. Oh my goodness. Yeah, those were fun times, man. I mean, and I remember back in the day when I didn't even know how to skip like the post match screen, and those were the days, like, it's such a drag, but like I was facing this Godfunk. Yeah, this is that that one Reddit post, and it's just that guy did not sleep, because I was determined to beat him. So I literally stayed up. And it's interesting too, because obviously, yeah, international players. So you really get to recognize which region they're from, because when they stop grinding, that's when they sleep. So you really get to figure. And he was not from America, I don't think. And yeah, I literally stayed up because I wanted to exert dominance, that Sigma grind set, and just show who's boss. Like, no way am I gonna let up the gas at all. I was playing that mind game with him, but he just did not sleep. Like, that dude is crazy. So I did the same. Like, I did not sleep too, and I don't know if it was worth it or not, but that was that.
I remember, like, slightly different than mind games, but when AG was going to do his 32 million season, this is a while back now. He made me be like, Pete, you gotta you gotta like you gotta grind with me. You gotta stay on my tail so you can give me motivation.
Yeah.
I didn't stay on your tail the whole time because I stopped at 18 million. I also wasn't using recharges.
Wow, that's insane. But wow, that's good to know. Like, AG tapped into the, more potential than I did in terms of like motivation. He invited his friend to help him out versus I was a Lone Ranger and I just, this dog eat dog world. But no, that's why. I mean, that obviously is why he surpassed my record. About 30 million. I thought that was it, I was like, I can. And then he beat it by 32 million. I was like, oh, I got to beat it now. And then, AG, do you want to like kind of disclose what happened with 40 million, or do you just want to keep it to yourself?
I mean, we can disclose it, but I want to talk a bit about you, about me beating you and then you beat me again.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Because while I did the 32 million, I had vacation. I had a week off. And then I'm in vacation in Sweden. And then I check my phone and I see you grinding like 4 million a day. So I talk to MG and I'm like, you don't think he's going for a record, is he? Nah, probably not. It's gonna be fine. So day 3, I'm like, okay, he's gonna pass my record, and I can't do anything about it. And then I see you going to 32 mil. Okay, he's gonna stop here, right? He just kept going, and I was like, oh my god, this is gonna. I gotta clear another week of my life.
Oh my god, I did not know that. Wow, you were on vacation in Sweden. I'm sorry. Like, if I knew, then I would not have kind of, I don't know, disrupted your vacation mode because you were anxious looking at my battle rate. Oh,
I remember
man.
him saying to me after the fact. He was like, yeah, I gotta come back. I gotta make my, I gotta make my throne back.
I planned it for months. I tracked the spreadsheet of my fastest teams and how much it would take.
You were so determined.
This guy would not give up. Exactly, because
competition. That's the motivation.
I think what MG made the record at 25 million. Was that it? I can't remember. It was 20 something. Okay, yeah. So I was like, okay, I'll beat it by 5 million. That's probably enough. So I started at 30, and then you went 32. So I was like, you know what? I'll make it so that no one will ever beat me again. So I bumped it all the way up to 40. But then obviously you weren't backing down. So this is the story that I was talking about earlier that I'm going to disclose now. So I got to 40. AG planned his scheme, and he was planning to beat it, right? That's what you were gonna do, right? You're gonna beat that 40 million. And I basically just reached out to him. I was like, AG, I can see that you're getting there to 40 million. I know at this rate you're well on your way to beating me. But if you do that, you know that I'm going to come back and beat you again. And the numbers just going to get higher and higher, and we're going to torture ourselves. So I said, I leave it up to you. You can beat me, but know for certain that I will come back versus we make a truce and we both stop at 40 million. And of course, AG made the wise choice of tying that battle rating.
He agonized over that decision. He was like, he was in my DMs. He was like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what choice to make. He was so conflicted.
Well, I prepared for months, and then suddenly I'm like, okay, should I do? And then I accepted, and I had like 5 days to go. So I had no motivation left to really grind it out.
Wow, but it seems, just based on this conversation so far, that Awesome P has been a pretty integral part of your whole grinding career. He was there a lot, supporting you.
Mm-hmm.
That's true, yeah. I mean, he's a great player himself. He doesn't give himself a lot of credit, but 32 million with no recharges, I wouldn't touch that. I wouldn't do that.
Off. I'm the same AG. I would not even try. So yeah, no. Awesome is underrated iOS player right here.
Thank you.
Definitely.
That means a lot, y'all.
Absolutely, man. You're, any person who respects the grind is one in my books. So
Okay,
Like,
I have
spent
one final question
time.
for you. At least I do. Maybe Awesome P has another, but how do you look against grinding competitively now that the situation is what it is? How do you kind of keep the motivation, or what's the motivation for new players to still aim for the best?
You really got to dig deep. You got to ask yourself the question, why are you doing this? And if you can't find an answer, forget it. Just don't grind, because this is a long road. This is no easy feat. I am here in this podcast with two other person who completely understand what I'm talking about. It takes sacrifice. It takes being a no life. It takes grit. It takes determination. And so, you know, if you're looking for a challenge, if you want to discover the best version of yourself, then go for it. But remind yourself the reason of why you're doing it. Which brings me to ask both of you, where do you find that motive? What was your purpose? I'll start with AG, and then Awesome P, you can think about it, you can answer.
My purpose for grinding competitively?
Grinding to the very top, yeah.
I think it started off honestly as just to see if I could do it. I tried to do it because the week before I tried for real, I did like 1 million in a day because I needed top 5% or top 1%, and I hadn't grinded all week. Then I thought, hey, maybe I can try and actually get first. Let's see how tough it is. And then it ended up being a little more than I bargained for. But then I just fell in love with the competition of it all and all the mind games too.
Right.
And then
Well said.
I kept on improving in myself because I'm pretty competitive when it comes to some things. You
I can
believe
see that, yes.
But I'm competitive with myself as well because I try and plan out when I'm at least if I'm going above like 15 million, I plan it out to a certain number. But my motivation is really just to beat myself, really, or to get a record, or to beat a hacker, which is a good motivation.
Yes.
Or to beat my friend, Awesome P.
You usually end up doing that, yeah. No, I've had a lot of people ask me, because especially since the hackers took over the leaderboard, they were like, well, you're not getting the rewards, like why do you so want to beat this so bad? And well, I mean, no one does it for the rewards. No actual multiplayer grinder does it for the rewards anymore. Never really did, I think. But I guess my reason would maybe be a little bit more vain than AG's. I just, put simply, just really feels good to be good at something. Yeah.
Yeah, I get
Yeah.
that.
I wouldn't say that's vain. I mean, it's important to have some self-worth, right? I mean, if you don't even feel good about yourself, then how are you going to be any good to others around you or be a good influence, right? If you're not even happy with yourself. So, no, I think that's a reasonable reason.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of identify with that in the beginning because it was, well, especially after I started doing well, because it's like I might not do well in school right now, but I'm really good at this one thing, and
you don't want your entire self-worth to hinge on the game, but
I mean, I've come past that now, but
yeah.
it's
That's
still
awesome.
Yeah.
I'm glad that Awesome P and of course AG said that too. That at some point that was like almost your identity, but you have a more balanced view that at the end of the day it's still just a game, and life is not over if like you're not the top and then just whatever but you still people can't deny the fact that it has changed lives. I mean, this game has increased your self-confidence that you can bring and apply in other aspects of your life. You have proved, like AG, you proved to yourself, like at first you're like, can I do this? Can I be number one? And you just went, you kept breaking records, 30, 32, 40 million, and that 10 million in a day, which is crazy. And from there, I'm sure that translates to some of the things in your real life now where you might be, having a little bit more difficult time. And you know what? Like, if I can like, grind super hard in Justice and be like at the very top, I can do this, or and then same thing with Awesome P2, which I suspect is why Awesome is like trying really hard to beat me at typing, and
yeah, that is. I'm working on it, by the way. You should be scared. You should be
oh man,
really, really scared.
I already know. I mean, I told you, you are way younger. You have so much more potential. I'm sure you'll beat me at some point. Yeah.
I feel like I genuinely not like conceive of what my life would be like had I never found this game. Like, it's not even just like the multiplayer grinding or like the game itself, but the community, everyone I've met because of it. Just it's meant so much to me. And honestly, like, I feel like I would be in a much darker place right now, or would have been for the past few years if I had never, gotten back into this game.
Oh man, I this makes me want to meet you guys in person. And I'm not joking. Like, of course, whenever you're comfortable, whatever. But like, I've met Nightwing, and I do plan to meet Devlin16, the other moderator on Reddit at some point. We have talked about it before. Of course, our schedules are pretty busy. He also has a family of his own. But if you guys are down for it, like, I absolutely want to meet you guys. Like you said, it changed your life, and it changed mine too, obviously. So it would be so cool if we can maintain this connection, even if we move past Injustice later on, years to come. We can just kind of hang out and say, "That's my buddy that played Injustice with me all those years ago, and we were still in contact." Like, these are real emotions and relationships that have helped us all through different parts of our lives.
For sure. I mean, it's a little difficult because AG is all the way over in Europe, but
I'll get there. I promise. I'll make a trip.
yeah, you better.
I mean, if it's gone to Sweden, I'm sure he can come to America.
I mean, it's a different distance, but I mean, there's an ocean in between. But in a couple of years, I think I definitely will take the trip, and I have thought about that seriously. But
that's awesome, man! I'm so excited. Yeah. Let's make it happen, all of us. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, what Awesome P said, to me, it really also has meant a lot, not just in my personal development, but because I mean, I've made great friends with the two of you, and it's not just like a couple of days or just when you're playing the game. I think it's not just Injustice related,
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yes, absolutely.
I've because there have been times since 2020 when I really got back into the game where I haven't touched Injustice for months at a time, but I've still connected and stayed in contact with everyone that I met here.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I think that's probably the best thing about the game is the community, and because it's not huge, it's not oversaturated. It's more forgettable if the community is bigger.
It's more connected, I feel like.
Yeah.
Everyone's closer.
Yeah, I mean, you can see the name at the top of leaderboards and say, "Hey, that's Scopos. I know that guy."
Or that's Spectrin, or that's Awesome P. And both of you, and I'm sure some other guys too, are well known in the community by now.
Yeah.
But you guys hit the nail on the head. I can't stress this enough. The very reason I even started a YouTube channel is because of the community. I didn't even believe it myself when they were suggesting. I was like, they're just being nice, or but they kept pushing, and it was like, no, I really think your content is good. You should start a channel, and I'm glad I did. I'm glad it all worked out in the end of the day. But yeah, thank you, Justice Mobile community. We owe you one.
I mean, you're acting like you didn't basically build it from the ground up. I mean, obviously there was the subreddit, but I feel like you really had a big part to play in the creation of this community.
Yeah, I think the community in your Discord channel is a lot different from the Wiki Discord channel, because people just take it, I think, more seriously and more focused or something.
I guess what I'm trying to say is thank you, Scopos, for everything. I'm very, very grateful.
Yeah, thank you for the streams and for all those videos.
I'm not crying. You are.
Yeah.
But yeah, seriously, yeah, I mean that makes it all worth it. You know, some I don't think of course there are highs and lows on a journey, but I don't think there was any point where I kind of regretted ever starting it. There wasn't a point where it was so bad where even when I got imitated with the hacking and I got wrongfully banned. That was the part of the lowest point of my Injustice career. Even then, I didn't have thoughts like, "Oh, I should never have started this." You know, why did I do this to myself? You know, or why does this hacker like? I just had motivation to start the whole starting from a new account series, and that has been a huge help. I've heard to a lot of people as well. Like to just see how I would upgrade his gear or which cards I would promote and how I played from day one. Like that was a very interesting series that a lot of people enjoyed as well. So if anything, that was a blessing in disguise, that from the fact that something so bad happened to me where I can't keep grinding to something beautiful that came out of it that was able to help other people. So yeah, all in all, no regrets whatsoever, and I'm so glad to like comments like yours really makes the whole journey and effort worth it, because I did put a significant amount of time. Maybe it's because I'm bad at editing, maybe I'm not efficient enough, I have a slow computer, whatever, but I do spend a lot of time in making those videos. So
I think it's really inspiring how you are able to turn things around just because you're smart about it, of course, but it's just hard work and it's respecting the grind. I think that's looking back, that's probably had a big impact on me about how I view things in general. That you can achieve whatever you want, you can be competitive, and you can aim for what you want by just going the route, by respecting the grind, by just going for it and putting in the work.
Yeah. There's so many life lessons that this game and this community has taught me.
Exactly.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Hashtag respect the grind.
Yeah.
There we go.
Okay. Awesome. P, do you have any more questions?
I think I've asked and said everything that I was thinking.
Scopos, do you have anything to say? Any last words on YouTube?
Well, I would say once again, can't be overstated. Thank you so much to every single one who has supported the community, whether it's on my channel, MG's channel, AG's channel, whatever. I mean, and thank you to the IGAU podcast channel for inviting me. And they invited me way back. Of course, I was just busy and I wasn't even active on my own channel. But I think it makes so much sense for me to accept the invitation and to be here, because this is part of that community. This is part of what gives the whole game its meaning, right? If we didn't have people to share the knowledge, the joy, all the experiences with, there's no meaning to the game. And that's why I still think a quote unquote dead game like Injustice still survives to this day, versus so many other games that get shut down or people don't enjoy playing anymore. This is different. So long live Injustice, and thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you so much, Scopos.
Thank you for coming on.